wabarakatuh, and hi, I am Shafika Afifa binti Shuib, and today our group will present about generic science movie. Basically, generic here means a characteristic of or relating to a class or group of things. It is similar with general of something but without a brand product name. So let's start with the introduction, which is what is movie? So here, the definition of movie is, it is a film, also known as a movie or a motion picture, is a series of moving images shown on a screen, usually with sound that make up a story. I bet all of you have watched movie, right? And I think that some of you make watching movie as one of the activities that you always do, right? So am I. So here, have you thought that by using movie or by watching movie, it can use as a tool for education, especially in science lesson? This could be one of the effective tools as students nowadays are very familiar with the use of technology and also gadgets. Besides, this way is more suitable for the 21st century learning, which are much more familiar to students in this era. So, let's move to the advantages of science movie for students. First of all, by watching science movie notably benefits the student as it is increases their understanding of scientific ideas and also concepts. It is recommended for everyone, especially for students who want to pursue their study in science. This is because science students need to learn a lot of scientific ideas and concepts which may eventually confuse them. Therefore, by watching science movie, the students will be learn about those concepts in such more entertaining way despite the common method truth notes which is more like to the traditional ones. In fact, movie is a work of visual art that used to stimulate experience and communicate ideas, concepts, the perceptions, the beauty, the feelings, or even atmosphere through moving image. And these moving image are generally accompanied by sound and more rarely by the sensory stimulations. By mean, it is a great help and opportunity for students to develop their understanding about certain scientific concepts. Now, let's move to the second advantages, which is the movie also makes complex scientific theories more accessible and easier to learn. Science movies these days have progressively been elevated to an academic level and are recognized as a great educational tools for science students. Since academic science is quite hard for many of the students to read, to learn, and even process, movies can make the concepts more clearer. So, the educators usually use the science movie to spark students' interest in science lesson. And in this way, the students are better able to learn the concepts and theories that are quite hard to learn and understand in the traditional classroom setting. For instance, the students can understand the concept of gravity when they can see how the movie portrays the gravity, such as human will float in the space. Now, let's move to the next advantage, which is science movie also allows students to see life through different perspectives. This variety of perspectives can be seen through portrayal by different characters in their movie. Science can riddle us to think more creatively regarding our current and future problems. Most of the movies are based on stories that suggest that we will definitely endure future challenges more effectively. And this movie also encouraged us to see things from different perspectives, such as the protagonist character, antagonist character, and even the target audience. And through this, students will be able to generate variety points of view regarding the concept to the context of the real world. Not only that, through developing various perspectives from this science movie, the students also will be able to come out with interesting yet wide range prediction about the story, especially the ending. It is a good activity to keep enhancing students' mind rather than blindly watch the movies without any trigger to improve the understanding about the story or about the science movie. No, so now let's move to the next point, which is make lesson more meaningful. We are living in a world that is progressively more and more integrated with science and also technology. Watching science movie will spark students' interest. As they watch more movies based on science and technology, they will feel that the lesson more interesting and also entertaining. A lot of people also watch science movies to stay updated with upcoming technology trends and to enhance their background knowledge in science. When mentioning about technology, we often look up the science movie from Western country, especially USA. This is because the technology way advanced compared to other countries, and through this students will be able to learn about the current technology used and the method. This will help them to gain more knowledge and for sure the learning experience. Finally, by watching movie also it will increase students' motivation. This is because when the students find something more interesting for them, they can focus more when watching the movie. In addition, it also makes the students more willingness to learn without being forced. Hence, the students will actively participate in the lesson as they focus more in the science movie. So that's all from me.
Hello everyone, my name is Brenda and I will present on the next subtopic which is bad movie signs. Bad movie sciences are scenes in movies that portray inaccurate science concepts, mainly for entertainment purposes. It can show an illogical phenomenon or those that do not obey the law of physics. There are many movies out there with bad movie sciences. For instance, Jurassic Park, The Core,
Everybody on Earth is dead in a year.
The core of the Earth has stopped spinning.
The spinning core protects us from cosmic radiation.
Without it, radiation will create superstorms.
and Back to the Future.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine instead of a DeLorean?
He's sending Marty 30 years back in time.
It worked!
Movies with bad science does not necessarily mean it is a bad teaching material. People can actually learn from it in a way. It was reckoned that bad movies help pre-service teachers identify science misconceptions and pseudoscience. Such exposure to movies with bad science can help them to be more creative in their teaching. By watching bad movie science together, teachers can directly address the scientific misconceptions held by their students. Besides that, teachers can open a discussion with the students about the scenes. Next, the students can then evaluate for themselves the scenes in the movies, whether they are bad, exaggerated, or possible. This also allows students to think deeply about a science concept and ask questions to be clear of it. The use of bad movies was generally regarded as effective because it retains their attention throughout the class and induces their thinking. I'm sure you can agree with this because if you see something unusual, for example, a flying cat, you would take a second look, right? Even ridiculous films can make audience enthusiastic about science and make them want to learn. So, one must have the proper use of it. Proper use means that students are made aware of inaccuracies in the movies and are told concretely which facts have been distorted and are inconsistent with historical facts. This is why it is important that we understand how people learn from movies. Okay, given that, I am going to introduce to you a movie with bad movie signs. The movie that we will discuss is entitled The Man Without Gravity. It is a 2019 Italian movie with magic realism style. It is directed and written by Marco Bonfanti and was released on November 1st, 2019 on Netflix. This movie starts by showing a woman who was in labor and her mother hurrying to the clinic. She was able to give birth in a room in the clinic, helped by the nurse. The baby boy she birthed came out floating into mid-air. The woman decided on naming the baby boy Oscar. Everyone in the room was puzzled. Nonetheless, the woman and her mother took the baby home and cared for him. To ensure that the boy doesn't float away, they had to strap him down with belts and put weights on him, such as putting heavy objects in his clothes. Growing up, his floating ability was kept a secret to protect him. He will always carry something to anchor him down whenever he goes out. As he grew older, he needed heavier objects to keep him grounded, so he switched to carrying a heavy backpack. It was challenging for him as people would tease him for always carrying a backpack. His life then changed when he decided not to keep this condition a secret anymore. Do you want to know what happened to him next? You can watch it later on Netflix. Now, I want to draw your attention to the rather incorrect science concept found in this movie. There are two science concepts that I want to point out. The first one is gravity, a natural phenomenon. Gravity acts between all matters. As we know, Earth's gravity is what keeps us on the ground. Contrary to the movie, Oscar is not drawn to the Earth. As you can see, everyone and everything else is pulled back towards the Earth, so there is evidence of gravity. Also, the film takes place in the natural Earth environment, so for Oscar alone to be floating is very absurd and not logical. Let's say, if Oscar really is not affected by gravity, shouldn't his hair and legs be floating as well? I will give you a few seconds to think about it. The next incorrect science concept portrayed was the buoyancy principle. For this, let's note some scenes in the movie. In the movie, Oscar's levitating ability was compared similarly to flying. This may be because they were dumbfounded by it and cannot explain the strange situation. However, this is factually incorrect as he does not seem to be pushing against the air to go upwards. In fact, this was how Oscar levitates.
Regarde un peu ce que tu as fait. Oh, ben ça alors. Superman.
Interesting movie, right? These bad movie science scenes portray science in a more imaginative way, sometimes going beyond the principle and limitation of scientific knowledge. We must Note that some movies contain inaccuracies that were added to tell a more consistent story. Movie directors use their artistic freedom quite often in that way to make the movie suit to their plot. So, as future teachers, we must always keep that in mind and use them correctly if we want to use them as teaching materials. That's all for this section. Thank you for your attention you have given so far. Next, my group member Aisha will go into the analysis of the science concept in the movie.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Now let's continue with the analysis of the science concept in the movie The Man Without Gravity. So our goals for today is I will cover about gravity, buoyancy, and the effect of the bad scene in the movie The Man Without Gravity. So let's go one by one. Does Man Without Gravity exist? What do you think? Let's find the answer. Sir Isaac Newton would discover gravity. He was an English mathematician and physicist. One day, Newton saw an apple falls from the tree towards the ground. Then he wondered, why didn't the apple go up to the air? After many assumptions, finally he found that there is a force that made it fall on the ground named gravity. Have you ever wondered why we're going down after we jump? Yes, that's because of gravity. So what is the gravity? Gravity is the force by which a planet or other body draws object towards its center. The force of gravity keeps all of the planets in orbit around the sun. It is also known as invisible force that pulls us back to the earth. Every object that has mass exerts a gravitational force. The size of the pull depends on the mass of the object. As you can see the picture here, the gravitational force pulls this boy downward with his weight or mass. Why a stone falls on the ground faster than a piece of paper? This is because the bigger the object mass, the more the gravity it will have. The smaller the mass of the object, like the paper here, so it will have the less gravity. So why do astronauts float in space? That's because there's a less gravity in space. Everyone knows that the farther you get from Earth, the less the gravitational force is. Well, astronauts are so far from the Earth that gravity is so small. This is why NASA calls it as microgravity. Gravity is very important to us. We could not live on Earth without it. The sun's gravity keeps Earth in orbit around it, keeping us at a comfortable distance to enjoy the sunlight and warmth. Without Earth's gravity, all items held to the Earth's surface by gravity would float away. That include the people, cars, and animals. Imagine everything around us float in the air. It's very hard, right? The article by D. Brown in 2018 states that there is no such thing as zero gravity. Zero gravity is the state or condition in which there is no apparent force of gravity acting on a body or object. From the movie, it states that the man without gravity. So without here, it means no gravitational force that act on Oscar at all. Keep in mind that gravity never disappears entirely. It just gets weaker, and every object which has mass has the gravitational attraction. Can human float in the air? Let's see the answer. Before that, let's talk about the buoyancy first. Archimedes, who discovered the principle of buoyant force, he discovered that the upward buoyant force on a submerged body was equal to the mass of the displaced liquid. So what is buoyant force? Buoyant force is the upward force a liquid exerts that opposes the weight of a partially or fully immersed on the object, and this force causes the object to float. The upward force, which is buoyant force, increases as it pushes deeper into fluid. This is due to the pressure increase as we go deeper into the fluid. Remember that in density, the object floats because it less dense than the fluid. How can a hot air balloon fly upward when gravity is pulling it down? Thanks to buoyancy, because of the buoyancy, hot air balloon can float in the air, an upward force that the air exerts on them. Since the hot air balloons itself is heavier than the air, it must be filled with a large volume of something much lighter, which is hot air. For your information, when the something is heated, it will expand. If an object expand due to the heat, that means it takes up more space than it did before. Therefore, hot air balloons rise into the air because the density of the air, which is the hot air inside the balloon, is less than the air outside of the balloon, which is the cooler air. Now we can see the difference between the gravitational force and the buoyant force, right? As you can see the picture here, in summarize, the gravitational force is the force that pulls down things, while in contrast, buoyant force is the upward force that keeps things afloat in fluid, which is water and air. So let's talk about the movie again. Oscar can float in the air and he wants to become like his favorite superhero character, which is Superman. The truth is, people cannot walk on the water or air as there is insufficient resistance force to a person's weight. Right? According to Dave Brown in 2018, we are on Earth. We feel our weight because as the Earth's gravity pulls us into its center, the ground pushes back, which is buoyancy force, against our feet. Besides, human body is more dense than the air, so gravity wins out over buoyancy. Normal people can't float in the air because we are denser than the air. That's why we walk on the ground, not float in the air. So this movie is so illogic because obviously human can float like hot air balloon. Next, the last part is the effect of the bad scene in movie to students. First, it will lead to misconception of science concept. The article from M.O. Beckett in 2016, he mentioned that misconception can negatively influence how the concept in science are learned. For example, from the movie, they will believe that people without gravity is exist without learning the fact about concept of gravity. Second, students will daydreaming about things they are unlikely to achieve. After watching the movie, they will think that it is possible for me to become a Superman or a Spider-Man. The truth is, they will never. This is because we have experienced the force of gravity. It is what happens to us when we jump into the air. We will back to the ground, right? So disappointingly, for anyone with ambitions to be a Supergirl or Superman, instead of flying to protect others, you will tend to fall right back down to the ground. Please don't dare to try, okay? Third, bad scene can influence students to get the wrong science concept. They will trust the myths instead of the scientific facts. For example, they believe people can float in the air, but the truth is, it is just a myth because in the earth, we have gravity and buoyancy force that act on our body. Therefore, for the recommendation, parents should keep an eye on their children in the selection of movie they watch so that students are not influenced with the misconception easily. Besides, film industry should aware about the correct scientific concept. The film director and team must do some research and discussion with the expert in the science field before making a movie. I think that's all for my part. I hope all of you are clear with the concept of the gravity and buoyancy. Thank you.